ESG risk management does require a lot of data collection.
AI is it's crucial.
I think that's really interesting, just how it affects everyday people.
I'm an expert in geopolitics.
Oh, wow. Well, then I'm sure you and I could have multiple podcasts on multiple different topics. Welcome to Amplify AI Partners, the podcast where we explore the intersection of technology and business transformation. I'm your host, Humza Malik, and today we're diving into one of the most significant shifts happening within financial services overall, which is how environmental, social, and governance principles and evolving risk management frameworks are fundamentally reshaping the banking sector. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Stephen W. Pearce. He's a leading expert in sustainability consulting and ESG strategy. Stephen brings over a decade of experience in corporate sustainability, having worked both with nation states and multinational corporations since at least 2012. Stephen, thank you for being on the show. Would you give just a brief introduction of who you are, and then we could get started?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me. Yeah, my name is Stephen Pearce. I'm the CEO of Pearce Sustainability Consulting Group. I've been working in sustainability projects and consulting since 2012. I'm currently in Tunisia now, and my first time I went to Tunisia was in 2012 when I was in my graduate program, my first graduate program, in order to research how to help Tunisia increase or development using green initiatives, because it was right after the Arab Spring and the whole world was looking to Tunisia for trying to help them with their democratic transition, and I wanted to help them with their green initiatives. So that's why I initially came out here. Now we're looking at opening up an office in the UAE. We've prepared $40 billion worth of development projects for the UAE with concept notes, and my company, it has three aspects. So the first aspect is we work with corporate sustainability consulting that deals with like ESG, GHG reduction plans, biodiversity plans, preparing them for CSRD, double materiality. The second aspect is with sustainable or global development. We help nation states and NGOs develop plans for their development. And the third aspect, which is still under development, is we're creating a predictive sustainability intelligence platform. There's nothing like it in the world, and it'll be used for different types of agencies within governments. It could be used by military, it could be used by NGOs, and we're making a corporate version of that as well. So it'll be good for like insurance companies, financial institutions as well.
Awesome. That's actually very cool, man. I'll kind of give you just before we get into kind of the meat of it. So I'm interested in kind of current events, geopolitics. I minored in history in undergrad, for what it's worth, just because I really enjoyed it, right? But I've seen kind of firsthand through my own experiences traveling, and my family's from Pakistan. A couple things that I noticed is that, number one, everybody, most people, even in the third worlds, have phones, smartphones, access to internet. Number two, what I've seen is the environmental impacts to everyday people, right? I was in the village where my father was born like 75 years ago. I was asking them like, hey, I was really excited to eat like the most organic fruits and vegetables probably ever in my life that are grown like from my grandfather's land, right? And I was asking like my cousins and my aunts who are still over there, I said, hey, where is everything? And they said, dude, the environment, like the weather has been changing over the last like 20, 30 years. It doesn't rain as much. And then when it rains, it's like full monsoons. And so that goes back to my earlier point, right? About everybody having a phone, and they just see, people in other countries are okay. They don't have to deal with that. They could just kind of go to the grocery store and just get food. Never mind, everything else. So I think that's really interesting, just how it affects everyday people, right?
I'm an expert in geopolitics also, and I deal a lot with actually conflict resolution, and I've written papers for like the Department of Defense for how to mitigate problems in conflict, and that's part of the reason why we're creating the Predictive Sustainability Intelligence. It's to prevent conflicts that are based upon like climate change, conflict minerals, people trying to get resources over like water, for example, which is a major issue in a lot of regions of the world. So yeah, it's interesting you brought up geopolitics because I'm a geopolitics expert. And my undergraduate degree is a bachelor's of integrated studies in sociology, anthropology, and political science. With the political science, I focused on international politics. The anthropology was more on cultural anthropology, and sociology was more on globalization.
Oh, wow. Well, then I'm sure you and I could have multiple podcasts on multiple different topics. I think that's one thing that a lot of people, generally speaking, in the West might not, or who have not traveled at least, might not appreciate, which is you might see all this kind of things in the media and whatever, and that's a whole other topic. But when people don't have access to clean water or food, human nature takes over. So, and I think that's a big thing in a lot of conflicts is just resource scarcity. And then human nature does its thing and takes over. And I mean, we saw just in the United States during COVID, one little speed bump and people were going crazy fighting for toilet paper, never mind food and water, right?
Right.
I think, certainly I think, traveling just in general does broaden your perspectives there.
You just made me think about a situation with water when you brought that up. And it actually deals with Israel and Gaza. Like I said, I get information from the DoD and everything because we were partners with USAID, United States Agency of International Development. So I'm privy to information, right? 2 weeks before the attack on Israel, so like 2 weeks before the October 7th attack, there was this woman and she was asking the Israeli government to allow them to get water because there had been some people that were settlers in Gaza that were Israeli that were stealing the waters. And as far as I know, it was unbeknownst to the Israeli government. I'm not really sure. I don't think that they knew, but they were stealing the water. And then it went, so they were only getting 30% of the water that was going to be allocated to them. And then after that, they started stealing more water. So now they were only getting 10% of the water. So this woman was making a cry for help to the Israeli government, saying, please allow us to get our water. I have to choose every day if between either I have a choice to take a shower or have water for cooking and water for drinking. And I knew at that time that there was going to be a big problem. And what a lot of people don't understand in that region is the Golan Heights. And I even learned in my undergrad, in my undergraduate courses, that the Golan Heights was going to become a major source of conflict because that's the sole water source for Israel, Palestine, Lebanon, and Syria. And so, like the UN has tried to take control of that so they could allocate the water. But it seems like that a lot of that conflict is about control of the Golan Heights in order to control the water.
Yeah, no, the water war stuff though is really crazy. It's really apart from everything else, denying water to a human being is it's just inhumane, really. But
I even have a book about this subject, and I'm coming out with the second book. It's called From Warming to Warfare: Climate Change and the Road to World War III. Because imagine right now there's 114 conflicts going on globally. 39 of them are recognized officially. The other ones are not recognized officially because they're either intrastate or interstate, right? So interstate meaning separate countries are fighting each other. Intrastate is meaning that there's the conflicts within the countries and they're being controlled by outside agitators. And the two outside agitators are basically countries within the G7 or within BRICS. and it's about they're all about control of resources when you peel the layers of everything.
No, absolutely. 21st century warfare is largely these proxy wars, with the great powers, moving pieces on the chessboard. It just happens to be those chessboard pieces are real people with real lives, just not really living in the West necessarily.
Yeah, that's true, and
It's,
that's what my book is about.
and, when I think about these kind of things, there's this verse that always comes to mind. But Stephen, I'll tell you, لغتي العربية is ضعيفة. So my Arabic's a little weak, but there's this verse from the Quran
That's
that
fine.
says, they're told, don't spread corruption in the land. And their response is, we are only peacemakers. And if one thinks about it, one sees
Oh,
it
yeah.
in the world pretty often. But, what can we do except spread
Well,
awareness, I
there's
suppose?
you've studied history, and with my anthropology background, if you look going back millennia, and if you look at civilizations, it's conquering other civilizations, at the end of the day, it's always been about resources. Even if they say it was about religion, it was about ideology, they always are selling resources, whether it's gold or it's something else. Also, if you look at the collapse of major civilizations in the past, it's always been because of a loss of resources as well. So it caused them to have to mass migration all of the time. Entire civilizations have collapsed because of a loss of resources, especially in prehistoric times.
That brings up a good
Antediluvian.
point. So I'm a big fan of Ray Dalio's book, Changing World Order. And I thought it was fascinating how he looks, and he's a hedge fund manager, right? Billionaire, way more smarter than any politicians, in my opinion. And he did this whole book where he looks at, empires throughout history, the Dutch, the British, the American. And he looks at, I think, 12 different KPIs. And it's pretty cut and dry clear that the American empire is no exception to history. What goes up must come down. I thought it was really interesting. I don't know if
Yeah,
if
they
you've
every empire has gone through stages, and right now we're in what they call the nemesis stage. This is the stage before an empire collapses. And hopefully I'm American, and I'm definitely pro America, and I always want to see America on top because at least we have some semblance of human rights. And some people might, in my opinion, some people might hope for the downfall of the US, but who's there going to be the replacement? China? China has no semblance of human rights, and I think that there, if that was to happen, people are going to wish that the U.S. was back on top, because the U.S. has tried to at least do good. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of mistakes that the U.S. has made in their lifetime, like what happened in Iraq, what happened in Libya, what happened in a lot of these countries was horrible. But then there's also a lot of success stories, how they've helped Saudi, how they've helped, UAE, how they've helped, even they helped China with their development. So like, I think that there's has been short-sighted people that were war hawks that have been in office that just wanted to take resources. And I think that there needs to be good people that could consult to the cabinet that are always in charge, to try to give good advice to try to prevent these situations. But the reason why I think that and I actually just wrote an article about this, and it's on my Substack, I didn't put it on my website, that a lot of the reason there's a lot of climate change denial within the US government, especially amongst the Republicans, is because of the petrodollar. Because what makes the US dollar strong, and the whole oil industry from Saudi Arabia to OPEC, everything is traded on the US dollar. So I think that there's a short-sighted view that if there's a lot more green energy coming up, that you want to have that oil there to back the strength of the US dollar. So in this article, I speak about this, I speak about the history, and then I offer solutions on how to acknowledge climate change, try to move to a green economy and a peaceful and offer peaceful solutions at the same time. Creating keeping the U.S. dollar strong.
Well, I will look forward to reading that Substack article. I think that's really interesting. And you're right. I mean, oil is the lifeblood of the economy.
Thanks.
Stephen, let me ask you now, if we bring it back to ESG and risk management, physical and maybe transitory climate risks now seem to be kind of central to banking risk assessment. Can you walk us through how are banks quantifying climate risk and integrating them into their traditional operational risk modeling?
It's important to understand that when we talk about ESG, environmental, social, and governance, it really should be ESG for investors. And so, because basically it's a report for investors as well as for financial institutions to lower risks. So, so based upon this, the two biggest drivers for ESG has been banking institutions and insurance institutions with companies that have like higher ratings. So they might have like extreme risk, high risk, medium risk, or low risk when they do the ratings for ESG ratings for a company. So obviously, an extreme risk is risky for insurance companies and for bank companies. So like they would look at different criteria. Let's look at something that's dealing with climate change and environment. Like let's say a company has its headquarters in New Orleans, and you know New Orleans is prone to flooding. So based upon like TCFD guidelines, you would try to image out through mapping where your company is, and then you would look in the likely scenario of there being flooding. Now, and we actually have strategic partners that have AI capabilities that could predict 20 to 200 years out, which is amazing that it's 200 years out. Now, such and such business is in this neighborhood. Now, what's the likelihood of it flooding? Now, if there is going to be flooding, how much damage is going to do? What kind of damage is going to harm the company, like people, like all of these things. So now what are you doing now that you know these risks and you graded the risk based upon the likely possibilities? What are you doing to mitigate the risk, to lower the risks? So like you would implement these type of plans and then present them to the bank, and also at the same time hope that you get higher ESG rating. Now this could go for like governance. You want to make sure that there's no fraud, that there is no like deception, that there's diversity on the panel, that you have the governance of is great for a company as well, dealing with diversity. Now, if you look at the social aspect, like is there a lot of diversity within a company? Are they allowing healthcare for their people? Are they promoting healthy lifestyles in the communities that their companies are in? Are they contributing? Are the people in their companies doing, maybe they want to do volunteer work, like have a volunteer day to volunteer for the local community, give back to the local communities that they're doing work at, or they want to make sure that there's no like child uh, slavery or some type of a child exploitation within their manufacturers that might be in the global south or something. So like they look at all of this stuff because that could be a reputation risk. So they look at all of the different risks and they try to mitigate it, because otherwise it could be less so they can make them less risky, so then they could allow for them to get loans. So it's good for a company because then they would get lower rates on their loans, and they're more likely to give them a loan. At the same time, this would apply to insurance companies. A company would be able to show their ESG rating, and based upon the rating, the insurance company would know if they're able to insure them or not, and have the, you know, maybe pay lesser, lower rates. It's great because now there's such a risk in some areas, like in California. There's insurance companies that aren't even insuring companies because of the risk of wildfires, you know. And it's also risky for a bank to give loans to companies that are in risk of wildfire zones as well. So we want to do everything they can to lessen the risk, have
Yeah,
programs
that
in place, if that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. Yeah, why would they? Right? When the risk is so high. So you mentioned, your um, predictive intelligence platform that you're working on. And
Yes.
so it sounds like ESG risk management does require a lot of data collection and analysis. So what role is AI and advanced analytics playing in helping banks and insurance companies process that kind of data? And what kind of hurdles are they facing, I guess, at least from the technology side?
AI is it's crucial because you could collect real-time data on like maybe a company's physical location, the life cycle of the products they're manufacturing, and the logistical support, everything. So you could collect all of this data in real time. When you have this data collected, then you could see what your biggest issues that your organization is facing, and then you could create plans in order to lessen the risk.
Well, thank you again, Stephen, for sharing your expertise with us today. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you. We'll see you next time, folks.